Hi everyone, I'm sorry it's been a while. I've been kind of busy doing other stuff than making videos. Most specifically, I've been playing GTA 5 a lot. It's not every day that a game comes out that I'm really excited about. I'm talking about the PC version. I know the console version's been out for a long time, but yeah, that's what I've been doing. Sorry. I figured I want to do something quick here today, so quick and unscripted video. Counterexamples to an old Earth from Conservapedia. Most of the evidence for an old Earth is based on claims that lack testability, as in radiometric dating. Okay, let's remember that they said that. And hence would not even satisfy minimum requirements for admissibility in a court of law. I'm sorry, what? Because in courts, they don't have the requirement that it's testable. For example, they will, eyewitness testimony is acceptable. If each of the following 45 counterexamples to an old Earth has merely a 10% chance of being valid, okay, that's not really how it works, but whatever, then the probability that the Earth is billions of years old is only 1%. Okay, you need to check the math on that one, because I make it 1 in 10 to the 45, so you're wrong by 43 orders of magnitude. Of course, the error is in your favor, but considering that the statement is complete nonsense, it doesn't matter. It's not that there's a 10% chance of a complete nonsensical claim being valid. If the claim is wrong, then it's wrong, so it doesn't matter. And you will see that actually all of these claims are wrong, irrelevant, or nonsensical. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In addition, much additional scientific evidence points to a young age of the Earth and the universe, and the biblical creation organization Creation Ministries International published articles, blah blah blah. Yeah, that's the source you're citing. So no scientific source for the claim about there being scientific evidence. That's interesting, although not surprising. The motivation for atheists to insist on falsely teaching that the Earth is old. Okay, first of all, atheism has nothing to do with it. Most people who accept that the Earth is old are theists, so you're absolutely wrong. Atheists are motivated and biased by the fact that their evolutionist theories require the world to be an implausible billions of years old. Okay, there's nothing implausible about the world being billions of years old, because it happens to be true. And atheists are not the ones who are biased. And evolutionists are not the ones who are biased. They are the ones who are following the evidence wherever it leads. The bias is found among those who ignore the evidence because they have a foregone conclusion that the evidence does not support. So, you. But let's have a look at the counterexamples. History. The oldest direct evidence of life. Written documents. Okay, can you see the problem here? Clothing, remnants of civilizations, tree rings, etc. Okay, so now you're confusing the oldest evidence of written language with the oldest evidence of trees. Is no older than about 3000 BC, and certainly younger than 4000 BC, the approximate age for the origin of the Earth, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you are absolutely wrong. Written documents, I believe, I don't know this exactly when, but written language is older than that. It's, I think, 5000 BC or something like that. But that's not the important part. Clothing. How the hell do you know that clothing is from 3000 BC? How did you date an article of clothing? Didn't radiometric dating fail to qualify as evidence? And I don't know any other way to find out the age of a piece of cloth. I mean, you need a dating mechanism. So you're acknowledging that it works. Tree rings, you're acknowledging dendrochronology, which cross-confirms radiometric dating. That's a way to test radiometric dating. I thought that lacked testability. Huh? But you're acknowledging it. But here's the thing. Written documents, you know, I don't think it qualifies a written document, but the oldest scribblings, if you will, would have to be cave paintings. And they're a lot older than from 3000 BC. And you're also ignoring, you said the oldest direct evidence of life. I mean, wouldn't fossils qualify as evidence of life? So, this is completely incorrect. Now we're getting to some fun stuff. Astronomy. No, you know what? I'm gonna wait with these and take them last, because I want to skip past the stuff that I don't know all that much about. Let's actually do... Okay, this is gonna be horrible. Let's do the biology ones now. I suck at biology. I remember the last time I made an unscripted video dealing with biology. The comment section was full of, dude, do you even biology? No. But let's do this anyway. Blue-eyed people are known to be only 6,000 to 10,000 years old. I am blue-eyed. I am not 6,000 to 10,000 years old. I think you mean that they are known to have existed for... I don't know if that's true. But let's say it is. What's your point? That would be a limit on the age of blue-eyed people, or the time that blue-eyed people have been around. It would not be a limit for the age of the Earth. It's not an indicator of that, so this claim is completely irrelevant. 2. DNA in ancient fossils, or so-called ancient fossils. DNA extracted from bacteria that are supposed to be 425 million years old brings into question that age. Okay, I don't know if DNA has been extracted from bacteria that are said to be 425 million years old, but let's say that this is actually true. Then that brings into question the age of the bacteria, not the Earth, not the universe. So it's irrelevant. This is funny. The intelligence of humans is rapidly declining. Too easy. Way too easy. Whether measured by SAT scores, which don't measure intelligence, music, personal letters, quality of political debates. Well, who's... It's the guys on the right, on the extreme right, that are really bad at debating. But yeah. The quality of news articles, yeah, I agree. Like, you know, all the stuff supporting right-wing nonsense. I agree. Well, there's some extreme left stuff that's also crap, but whatever. And many other measures. Okay, none of these are measures of intelligence. You're basically saying that people are getting worse at expressing themselves, which I tend to agree with, but you know, I don't even think the fact that there are creationists in the world, more today than there were probably like 20 years ago, is a sign that intelligence is going down. It's just that quality of education is going down, which is not a measure of intelligence. Intelligence and knowledge are two different things. Okay, but how is this relevant? I mean, let's say that, okay, people are getting dumber. How does this put a limit on the age of the Earth or the universe? If humans were even tens of thousands of years old... This means that if one goes back far enough, intelligence would be measured at ridiculous heights if humans were even tens of thousands of years old. Okay. it's time for me to use my whiteboard. Excuse me. There we go. Okay, let's say that the intelligence of humans varies over time. This is the time axis, and this is the, well, let's just say IQ. Okay. Oh no, that's a bad way to express it, because it's averaged. So yeah, intelligence. Okay. I'm a D&D player, int. So let's say we have a scale that goes kind of like this. Okay, and if you observe this time interval, okay, what you're gonna see is that it looks like intelligence is decreasing. It looks like, you know, if you extrapolate backwards, you get this. But that's not correct. So what you're doing is you're saying that because you can find a period in history where intelligence is declining, it follows that it must have been declining throughout history. And that's not how you extrapolate things. I'm going to come back to this because you're going to do a lot of this. There we go. I did take some notes before, as you have noticed, so yeah, I know that I will be referring to that over and over again. Where were we? The age of onset of sexual maturity is rapidly changing, suggesting that life is a short-term rather than long-term equilibrium. In a short-term rather than long-term. Okay, that doesn't follow. And again, remember the whiteboard? Indeed, the onset of sexual maturity is dropping. The age of onset, I should say, is getting lower. And that's because we have more access to food. As I understand it anyway. But this is not a measure of the age of the Earth. It's completely irrelevant to that. So far, all these claims have been irrelevant. I mean, I can grant them all and they're still irrelevant. The high observed rate of extinction of species and harmful genetic mutations suggest a relatively short period for the existence of life rather than a long one. No, that's actually false. The rate has been higher in the past. There have been periods of mass extinctions like the Permian and the Cretaceous, or well, the end of those periods. So this is completely false. Living fossils. Jellyfish, graptolites, what the hell is that? Coelacanths, stromatolites. I've heard of that, but I don't know what they are. Wollemi and hundreds more. Okay, evolution doesn't say that things have to change. Evolution says that things do change because of random genetic changes and selection pressure. Now, if there is no selection pressure, then there's nothing that's going to force a population to change. So this is a part that even I know. I mean, I suck at biology, but I know the answer to this one. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is grade school science. The age of onset of graying hair or balding, irrelevant. The age of onset of cancer is markedly decreasing. Okay, I don't know if that's true. Suggesting rapid change is inconsistent with alleged long existence of life. No, it would be inconsistent with us having had this lifestyle for a long time, because as I understand it, a lot of the things that cause cancer are related to our lifestyle. Like diet, things like that, smoking. so this is irrelevant. The number of... This one's interesting, because I don't really understand this one. The number of natural, purebred dogs, it says bred twice, declines over time as dogs naturally crossbreed. A short period of time is suggested by the fact there are over 100 different natural pure breeds of dog thriving today. Okay, if by dog you mean, I hope I'm getting this right, Canis lupus familiaris, the dog that we keep as pets, the dog, man's best friend, not counting like, you know, wolves and other canines, but just, you know, dogs, household pet dogs, then there are actually not over 100 natural purebred variants of that. They're not bred naturally, they are bred artificially. It's an example of artificial selection. Humans bred those dogs. So you're wrong. But also, this is a measure of how long dogs have been around, not how long the Earth and the universe have been around. So it's irrelevant. Lack of genetic diversity among the Homo sapiens species. Were evolution and the old Earth true, the human population would show a much larger genetic variance. Okay, there's a source given, and let's see. God and science. Okay, so it's not a scientific source. It's a creationist source. But okay, it's still irrelevant to the age of the Earth. It would be a measure, I suppose, of the age of the human species. But I don't even see how this follows. There are things like population bottlenecks, things like that can limit this. Having been around for a long time does not guarantee a lot of genetic variance. Cheetahs, great example. They've been through a bottleneck. So they have a very low variance. But I'm going to continue, because this is actually an argument that gets really interesting. Some scientists, that will be unnamed, have calculated that a troop of 55 chimpanzees contains more genetic diversity than the entire human race. This demonstrates that chimpanzees descended from a large initial population, while humans descend from a much smaller one, which we indeed know to have been 2 people. Okay, this is wrong according to your beliefs, dude. You see, there were, according to the Bible, 2 chimpanzees on the ark, and there were 8 humans. So you just said that the flood did not happen as described, which means you've just chucked out the whole literal interpretation of the Bible thing. I find that interesting. That you, in order to defend your beliefs, you have to abandon them. Okay, next. Frequent occurrences of numerous deaths of birds and fish, which if extrapolated over millions of years would result in little or no such life today. Remember the whiteboard? I don't even know if it's true, but extrapolating requires a significant data set, and you're cherry picking here. The separation between salt and freshwater fish, this is also interesting, coupled with their inability to survive in the opposing environment. Shows a lack of millions of years of evolution to enable them to spread to the opposing environment. Okay, no it doesn't. But because changes can be gradual. But Wouldn't the flood have affected salinity? So there are fish, so there was no flood. Well, I guess that settles the argument before then. It's not that the flood didn't happen as described, it's that the flood didn't happen by your own admission. That's cool. Furthermore, the separation of land and aquatic life and a similar inability for organisms to survive in the other environment shows a lack of millions of years. Okay, have you ever heard of amphibians? Biodiversity on Earth is declining too rapidly. Blah, blah, blah. Do you remember the whiteboard? The Bible makes reference to the dinosaurs. There's no explanation for this if dinosaurs supposedly lived hundreds of millions of years ago. Okay, the Bible does not make references to the dinosaurs. That's your interpretation of descriptions of the behemoth, for example. But yes, there is an explanation for it. Even if I grant you that the behemoth was a dinosaur, there are very good explanations for that. You see, we can reference dinosaurs and they're not alive today. So the fact that we can talk about something that we found the remains of does not mean that we were alive together. So this simply doesn't follow. This is a complete non sequitur. Geology. Okay, I don't know a hell of a lot about geology either, but let's go. The interior of the Earth is as hot as the sun. Well, the surface of the sun anyway. Far hotter than atheists thought. What? Far hotter than anyone thought before we figured it out. And such heat would have dissipated and the radioactivity decayed if the Earth were old. You're citing a source which is, let's see, BBC. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see the math, because that actually, no. The magnetism of the Earth is vanishing too quickly that it will so quickly that it will disappear. Okay, remember the whiteboard? Paraconformities, where one rock stratum sits on top of another rock stratum, but with supposedly millions of years of geological time missing, yet the contact plane lacks any significant erosion. Okay, I don't know enough about geology to answer that one, but I don't see how that is a measure of the age of the Earth, so irrelevant. The frequency of large earthquakes doubles every 40 years. That is simply false as far as I know. earthwebspecs.co.uk. There's been no increase of large earthquakes, and even if there were, remember the whiteboard. 5. The continued existence of fragile natural arches without having collapsed a short time period for erosion. I think you're missing a word here. You're talking about, okay, natural arches. Well, that would be a measure of the age of the arch, not the Earth. So I don't really need to analyze this one. It's irrelevant. An extrapolation of time between the collapse of weaker arches. Yeah, same thing. Irrelevant. The massive Great Lakes and freshwater lakes near the equator would not exist for millions of years. Well, unless there was something providing them with water, which there is. So, wrong. The existence of inland saltwater lakes at high altitude, such as Mono Lake and the Great Salt Lake, suggest a recent global flood. Why? Explain this one, seriously. Because rainwater would not be... I mean, how would the flood caused by an assload of rain cause there to be salt water lakes? Does not compute. This is one that I don't actually get. I suspect there's some sort of filter mechanism, but I hope someone who knows a thing or two about geology can explain this one. The relative purity of underground well water, which should be a muddy slurry, had millions of years of erosion taken place. I actually don't know the answer to that one. So please, if you know how that works, why isn't it like that? I'm assuming that like particles are filtered out somehow, but I'd like to actually have an explanation by someone who knows geology. The plentiful supply of high concentration of underground well water, which would be expected based on familiar principles of entropy to dissipate over long periods of time. You're going to have to explain that one because I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. How would well water that is being refilled dissipate because of entropy? You are making absolutely no sense. The lack of erosion between rock layers, didn't you already bring that up? What? Levels of contamination in water are rising. As water proceeds through the water cycle, it becomes progressively more contaminated. No, it doesn't. See, when water evaporates, it's just water. And then it comes down, it gets contaminated, then it's just water that goes up. And it doesn't become increasingly contaminated. All carbon dating of water supplies, even the most ancient and deepest underground reservoirs, result in relatively young ages. Okay, so you're acknowledging carbon dating. But also, carbon dating water? Really? What you would be dating is the age of the carbon that is dissolved in the water. So, irrelevant. The ratio of strontium isotopes in seawater, which should change due to long-term erosion, has varied by very little, blah blah blah. Strontium is not stable at all. So, well, it has a pretty short half-life, all of the isotopes. So, it decays. So, I don't understand this at all. The claim makes no sense. This is not a measure of the age of the Earth. The relatively recent separation of still moving continents from one landmass, denied by Christians, among others, denied for 100 years by atheists, they say now. Wrong. It's denied by primarily Christians, because it requires the Earth to be old, since continents move so slowly. And in fact, you still deny it, right? You're talking about uniformitarianism, disproving uniformitarianism. The fact that we see the same processes occurring at a very slow rate, and we just extrapolate that and see what happens, and then we look for other evidence to see, does this check with our extrapolation? And it turns out that it does, which indicates that we're actually doing something that doesn't remind me of the whiteboard. You're wrong. It's that simple. Fresh tracks of motion by stationary rocks. Tracks of motion by stationary rocks. Okay, I think I know what you're getting at. Those rocks in the desert that move. Okay, they're not stationary. That's why they move. But how does this have anything to do with the age of the Earth? It doesn't. Beaches have been eroding far too quickly for an old Earth theory. Really? How you're going to have to explain the relevance there. I don't see how the erosion of a beach has anything to do with the age of the Earth. If you're saying that land erodes quickly, then and that all land should be gone for that reason, then you also have to look at the fact that land is rising in other locations, so it doesn't work like that. Land is sinking into the ocean at a rate of at least 7 inches per century. In some places, I guess. In other places it's rising. What's your point? This is not a measure of the age of the Earth. And again, the white word. If something is sinking right now, that doesn't mean it has always been sinking. You can't draw that conclusion. The flow of water in the Colorado River has been declining. That would be a measure of the age of the Colorado River. If we can extrapolate, remember the whiteboard, but it has nothing to do with the age of the Earth, so it's irrelevant. Erosion of rock is far faster, haven't we already covered that? Irrelevant. That is not a measure of the age of the Earth. Science and discovery, a stalemate of significant and valid discoveries in the last several decades. Really? Because science is advancing faster than ever. Haven't you noticed new technology appearing at a higher rate than ever before? Yeah, that's because science goes forward. And valid discoveries, yeah, because you declare that all discoveries you don't like are invalid, so they don't count, I guess. This is completely wrong. And even if it were true, so what? How does this relate to the age of the Earth? Biblical testimony, which is irrelevant since the Bible is horseshit. Okay, now, astronomy. I skipped these because these are the ones I actually know something about. The oldest star in the universe is only 6,000 light years away from the Earth, precisely as predicted by the Bible. That is not predicted by the Bible. The Bible predicts that no star can be further away. No star that we can see can be further away than 6,000 light years. That's the only prediction it makes, and that prediction is false. The oldest star in the universe, well, the oldest known star in the universe that we can actually measure the age of. But wait a minute. You'd have to acknowledge how we measured the age. You'd have to acknowledge the measurement of the age to know it's the oldest one, and it's way more than 6,000 years old. It's like 13.7 billion years old. It's, yeah. You are wrong, and no, it's probably not the oldest star in the universe. But yes, there are first-generation stars in our galaxy. I think that's a first-generation star. It would have to be. No, I don't know its name. Not off the top of my head. The moon's orbit is a very strong counterexample. I've made a video about that, so I'm not going to address it. I'm just going to link to the video. Spiral galaxies appear to be young, and only implausible proposals of the existence of dark matter can reconcile the spirals with a belief in an old universe. That is simply false in every single way. Dark matter has nothing to do with the age of the galaxy. Well, it has something to do with it, but it's irrelevant to the claim being made here. Spiral galaxies do not appear to be young. If you look at the age of the stars in them, no, they don't appear young. So this is completely false. The expansion of the universe is accelerating, which would not occur if the Big Bang were billions of years ago. Yes, actually it would. You might need to actually do the math on that one. I've done it. A flat, vacuum-dominated universe, or an approximately flat, anyway, vacuum-dominated universe will accelerate throughout its history. So you're wrong. The planetary orbits in the solar system, including the Earth's, are unstable and unsustainable over long periods of time. And they cite a source, which is a paper in Nature. I actually checked that out beforehand. Which, well, it's not a paper, it's a letter, actually. But it mentions billions of years. in about 1% of simulations, orbits would be unstable over time periods of something like 5 billion years. So this is irrelevant to disproving an old age of the solar system. And we're talking about 5 billion years from today. At least one spiral galaxy spins in the direction opposite to the spin of its tail. So, you're talking about the spiral arm, I suppose, spiral arms, I suppose, which has nothing to do with the age of the galaxy. The arms of a spiral galaxy are actually just density waves in the galaxy. So, well, you're wrong about celestial mechanics, and it also says nothing about the age of the galaxy. It's completely irrelevant. The primary reaction in the sun is the fusing of hydrogen to make helium, but the ratio of these is too high for the sun to have been burning for millions of years. That is false. And the source they cite is a paper by Lord Kelvin from 1862, which doesn't have anything to do with nuclear fusion. Obviously, since that wasn't even thought of at the time. Talk about citing an outdated source, but it doesn't even say what you claim. It says it. Wow. Okay. Well, that's about it. So let's see. Of all these claims, how many of them have a 10% chance of being correct? Well, some of them have far higher than 10% chance of being correct, but they're irrelevant. Of the ones that are actually relevant, they're all false. So the probability of any of these disproving an old Earth is 0. Well, this was crap, but I hope it'll tide someone over until I actually get some more work done on my proper videos, the scripted ones that will be coming up in a while. I don't want to promise anything, but I don't know, a week or two. Something like that. See ya.